seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat, then I ain't taking, friend.
So this is SABACC?
SABACC.
Yo, welcome back to SABACC The Block, the #1 Star Wars show on YouTube. That's right, we are back talking about the new Disney Plus Star Wars show, Andor. We are here. I am here with RB3 to talk about this show. Robert Butler III. We are back. We are doing it live. And by doing it live, I mean we are 5 episodes late, but it doesn't matter because we are excited to talk about this new show. RB3, I'm pumped, man, because I haven't talked to you about this show at all. And I know I got a chance to check it out a while back. I got a chance to do a couple interviews with the cast. So I'm super curious, first of all, to hear your takes on the show. And then obviously we'll get to episode 5, which is an episode that we just saw last night. So RB3, right away, your thoughts on Andor so far, the 5 episodes that we've gotten.
Well, first of all, I think Andor is by far and away the best thing we've seen in Star Wars. Not only since Disney has taken it over, but so far as it's the best thing since the original trilogy. Without a doubt, it's not even close. It's, to me, this is top tier quality cinema. As Martin Scorsese, our buddy, has said, cinema. Everything about this, from the cinematography, the pacing, the acting, all feels elevated. It feels top tier. It feels A-list level, and it's taking Star Wars to a whole different level. So I really truly feel like this is my favorite Star Wars show. Everything from we're talking about the music by the great Nicholas Patel, puts his foot in everything that he scores, but then also just the themes. This whole theme of like imperial impressions, themes of indigenous people being displaced due to the Empire, themes of how, and really to me, the most impressive point is how they depict the villains and the antagonists and the bad guys. Because a lot of times in big fantasy movies, there's bad guys who have world-ending ambitions, like, oh, I just want to end the world, or I want to conquer the world, or I want to have some sort of big staple or presence in the universe. But in this show, all of the bad guys are purely motivated by, which I feel like is the most realistic form of evil, capitalism. Or in some sense, not just directly capitalism, but like ladder climbing. I feel like every character who's bad in this show is literally bad because they want to get to that next step or that next position in their career and proving something to their bosses or to their superiors and improving something in the workplace. And to me, that makes it beyond like just Star Wars. It makes it a human story that's taking place in a galaxy far, far away.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I feel like this show's so different than anything we've seen before. And I'm so excited about it because of how different it is and because it's so out there with its ideas inside the Star Wars universe, because it decides to break the formula a little bit of Star Wars and to not do that kinetic, energetic pace that Star Wars is known for and just go straight to long, deliberate, thoughtful, complex, layered stories and characters and character development and backgrounds versus just doing this quick action-paced sequence. You know what I was thinking, man, is that we've gotten 5 episodes of this show so far. And if you really think about it, if this was the usual Disney Plus Star Wars formula or just the Disney Plus formula, the finale would be next week, right? That would be it, because it's only 6 episodes. But because Tony Gilroy decided to really take their time with the story, we get 12 episodes. We get a much longer, much more deliberately paced, much more complete, in my opinion, story. And that's why I like these little episodes, because they feel like chapters in a book that we're eventually going to get to the finale. So I'm loving it, man. I really do. And I really like the character of Andor. How do you feel about his character so far?
I think Andor is a great character. I think Diego Luna is playing it to perfection, of like somebody who, again, he's he's not even a bad guy. He's just a normal person in this show, and they make it exclusively clear in episode 5. But his motivations is also like, yeah, I'm here for the money too. You know, I'm here for the check. I'm here for the bag. And then people who are like actually part of the rebellion, like Val and her team, not Val, Val. They got to get more creative with these names in Star Wars. Because isn't Val from Solo Star Wars story?
Yeah, this is Val though.
Yeah, this is Val. But you know, they're all motivated, and so is Luthen too, are motivated by the rebellion and like enacting right and justice. But Diego Luna is not really concerned with that. Andor is not concerned with that. His concern is looking out for himself, looking out for his people, because his character has been somebody who has had to look out for himself since the very beginning, since we saw those flashbacks with him and almost like his adoptive mother. I forget that character's name, Mace. I forgot her name, but
I think it's Marva. Maybe?
Marva. Yeah, and we see how she kind of picked them up from, you know, this already like what was seeming like this planet that was in the process of getting oppressed in Farax, that, you know, she picks him up, kind of takes him and ends up taking care of him. So yeah, I don't know. I love everything about this. I love everything about his character. I love the show. I love seeing his eventual commitment to the rebellion, because, you know, as we see in Rogue One, he eventually ends up being fully on the side of, you know, ending the Empire. But seeing his kind of hesitancy up top is nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good point too. And I feel like the good point about the villains. Talk to me a little bit more about your opinions on a character like a Cyril Karn, who is played by Kyle Soller, who plays that Imperial security officer, corporate security officer, who tries to gain more of an advantage and who's super gung-ho and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to capture the bad guy and to stop Cassian. What do you think of his arc between 1 through 4 mainly, and then obviously we'll get to him in 5?
Yeah, I mean, I love that like disillusionment that his character had like throughout it, right? Because he had in the beginning, like you said, he was gung-ho. He was going after Andor like relentlessly, and even against the advice of his own supervisors, his own commanders, and things of that nature. So then when he ends up doing that, and ends up having the most dire repercussions, where literally one of his people on his team ends up shooting some random guy on the streets. They end up tearing apart this whole Ferrix place. And then meanwhile, the people end up standing up for themselves and end up knocking out like majority of their crew. I think they came in with 12 guys and they end up leaving with what, like 3 or 4 by the end of that mission. So it's like, yeah, he goofed. He made Cyril made some of the dumbest decisions. And again, it's purely motivated by trying to look better and posture better than like the rest of the people. So than the rest of the people and the rest of his coworkers. So it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm really enjoying what they're doing with the ISB as well, which is what Deidre Merrow is. She is the blonde-haired lady who's trying to get to the bottom of what's happening with the rebels and the rebellion. I feel like that's a really cool angle too, because we're going to get a little bit more into what the Empire does when it comes to in terms of brainwashing. And it's really good the way they're breaking it down in these last 2 episodes, because in episode 4, they talked about how they're a medical company and they work on procedures and surgery inside infections of the Empire is how they broke it down when it comes to the ideas and the concepts of rebellion is what they're trying to squash. They're trying to squash ideas. They're trying to squash sparks. And that's what their main objective is, because that's the way they can get control of the Empire, is by taking down those kind of ideas and those kind of thoughts and those kind of little moments that really ignite a rebellion. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that ISB so far.
No, I definitely agree. I love that. Well, for one, I love that they're getting more specific with the different kinds of security that's within the Empire. Because with the very first group, I forget what the very first group was that the Cow homie was part of.
Corporate security.
corporate security, but they make that very clear. Like that's a private security firm.
Yeah.
Like they like when stuff happens to one of their people. And that's also what I love about Andor too, right? Like, you know, I didn't mention, you know, he shot first. Like this is a character that we saw him take the first shot and kill those two dudes at the beginning of the show. I think that's such a hardcore move that establishes this no nonsense, you know, kind of stoic, almost like throwback Western character who, you know, you can't mess with. And but seeing him off those two guys who were literally just like goofballs, like hanging out after work at a bar, or I think it was implied that it was a brothel kind of situation. Yeah, they're just like slouches who just got hired for a job and like were collecting the check. And that's really what everybody at corporate security are part of. And then we go to like the next level, to the IFB. What was that called again? ISB. So like when you go to like that next level, of course they care a little bit more, but it's that same level of like complacency. Like, no, we're paid to be here. Like they have a lot of officers. There's a lot of like, you know, government company people who can handle these situations. I think there's even a quote in episode 5, like, no, the like regions that are Empire controlled, there's no way to get information from, because like the Empire just want to sweep everything under the rug. Like they don't want to even talk about a rebellion kind of situation, even if it did happen, because they don't want those talks to spread. So yeah, just kind of like brushing stuff under the rug, kind of moving on and ignoring things. I think that's like both atypical corporation stuff, but also like true to the real world.
Yeah, we saw that in this episode. Let's get right to episode 5. So in this episode, we actually saw the guy who was fighting for jurisdiction for Ferrix. We saw in this episode that he just delegates it to another guy. He literally was like, hey, you want this assignment, man? Hey, here, you can take this building. I'm out. Pieces. And then we see him back at headquarters. And I was like, wait a minute, you just gave up the assignment after fighting for it? He just delegated it to the next person. Which I thought was really funny, because it's a good way to show the corporate attitude of the
politics.
Yeah,
because homegirl really cared and really wanted the Ferrix case, and then he was like no, and actively campaigned against her getting it. And then once he actually got it, he was like, I don't care. Like, he was
like, hey man, you want it? You want this? This is your building. Is that cool? I was like, dude, I thought you wanted this assignment. You just gave it to another guy. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool scene. And I think the boiling down of this episode was mainly about the crew. Last week, we saw the hesitancy of working with a crew, of Cassian working with this crew undercover, and they're trying their best to be undercover. So they're super, untrustworthy of Andor. And this episode, we got to learn a little bit more about each character. Which character to you stood out the most of the Rebel crew?
Of the Rebel crew, I mean, I definitely, for one, Lieutenant Gorn always sticks out to me, because he's somebody who's like playing inside of the Empire. And he like, just the way that he like kind of Jedi mind tricks his subordinates to like really make sure like to make them think like, oh, I really want y'all to work this day. Like I really want y'all to work tomorrow. But then ultimately, like, he wants them to not be there so they could pull off the heist. But it's just funny how he's like, look, this thing is not painted correctly, so y'all gonna need to come in. I know I gave y'all the day off, but y'all gonna need to come in. They're like, no, please, no, everybody wants to take the day off. Okay, fine, y'all got the day off. Like that is like such a funny like way of like going about it. And yeah, also just learning about his character being somebody who like had a relationship or love and the territory and the Empire literally ripping that away from him. And that's kind of what motivates him away from being part of the Guard. And watching that little tiny moment of when one of his subordinates is like, you can smell the stench of the people down there. There's only a few hundred left. And then you could kind of look quietly tell on his face, like he really hates that kind of talk. He just vehemently disagrees with that. So yeah, I like that angle from Lieutenant Gorn. I think he's a cool character.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. And I feel like it shows you the different, I think that's when Vale says that line where she says everyone has a rebellion of their own, or everyone is a part of the rebellion in their own way, something like that, which I thought was a really good line, because it shows you that that's how quickly you can become disillusioned, because it's up to interpretation what exactly happened with the wife he fell in love with, or with the woman he fell in love with. It could be interpreted that she was, captured and put away in prison. It could be interpreted that she was sent off somewhere else, or that she was killed, that they found out that they were together and that they killed her. But either way, that'll do it. If you fall in love with someone and then they say you can't fall in love with this person, and then they take that away from you, that's a quick way to get you away from the empire and to become disillusioned with it. So I think that's a good one too. I think every single one of these rebel characters offers something different, which I think is really cool. We get the damn, I forget his name, cousin, Skeet.
Oh, Skeen, yeah.
I feel like his character is more like the rough and tough, prison tattooed, jaded soldier who wants revenge and who doesn't trust anyone. And then we get the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kid. I think his name is Nevik, who is writing a manifesto and who wants to have all these ideas and who's, happy and hopeful for the future and about wanting to fight back. We have the super mysterious guy who's the guy who knows everything about the soldiers. I'm probably going to get his name wrong too. I'm trying to pull it up. I think his name is Terramin.
Yeah,
who knows everything about the soldiers and how they do their procedures. Then we have Cinta, the little girl. She's like this itty-bitty little girl who Skeen says is really tough. And then obviously Vel as well. So we have each one to have their own dynamics. And I'm almost positive RB3, I'm saying it right now, episode 5, I think at least 4 of them are going to die. Do you think so? Oh, yeah. I think the lieutenant is a goner for sure. I think Skeen is a goner for sure. And I think the kid is a goner for sure.
They gave him too much optimism.
Give me some Deadpool right here.
You know what
Deadpool is, right?
No. Oh, the dead. How many people are dead? Like how we're gonna pull
place
dead
bets.
people. Yeah. I don't. So yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Skeen going. I really hope that. Yeah. I hope that kid doesn't go because he seemed. He's like that's kind of.
That's why he's gonna go.
Well, I mean, that's kind of tough. I kind of feel like he's like a me character a little bit, like just somebody talks a little too much, like just won't shut up. Like that was definitely me. And I liked him. I liked farts. I like Lieutenant Gordon might go only because I could see I could see one of the bosses realizing it was you and then shooting him on the spot or something like that. That's very Star Wars. But I do gotta say this show is I wouldn't put it past any or all of them dying because we've already seen Rogue One. We've already seen Tony Gilroy's not afraid to kill off an entire cast of people.
I think a lot of them are gonna die. I think the only saving grace, I actually think most of the dudes, if not all of the dudes, are gonna die. I'm almost positive. The only ones that I see living, probably for sure, because we don't know that much about him, is Cinta Kaz, which is the girl. I think she can live because she's the most quiet one of them all. And because what's his face, Skeen said that she's the toughest one. And we haven't seen anything from her. We didn't get any really backstory from her or any conversations with her. So I feel like she might live for at least another couple episodes, but everyone else to me is fair game. I think they might be goners. I think most of them might be goners. But for me, I think the kid stood out the most, Nevik. I think he definitely stood out for sure. You know where he's from? It took me a minute to recognize where he's from.
Where?
Black Mirror.
Oh, really?
Remember the episode of Black Mirror with the kid who got caught watching something he shouldn't be watching on camera? And he had to deliver packages?
Oh, I don't know. Is that the most recent season? Or?
It's season 3.
Season 3? I don't know if I remember that. I don't know if I saw that one.
Okay. So season 3 came out after. I know you saw season 1 and 2 for sure.
Yeah.
But season 3, he's in Black Mirror. He's in that crazy episode of Black Mirror. And I knew I recognized that kid. But Nevik is definitely one that stood out to me for sure. And I think he's going to be important, at least for the next episode, because he seems to be a very smart kid for sure. But that to me was essentially what the episode was boiling down to, right? Is what is your motivation? What is each character motivation? Everyone has a reason to be there. And what is trust? And that's why Cassian decides to open up about him being paid off and him having the Kyber crystal necklace, and him having this different angle than everyone else. And he says to the guys, he says, hey, just because I'm being paid doesn't mean I'm any different than any of you. It just means that I have my own angle, my own perspective, but I still want to do this job. I still am 100% behind it because it's still my skin on the line. So I don't know what you thought of him confessing and being honest with the crew, and how do you feel like that changes up the dynamics of their mission?
I mean, hopefully it changes it up for the better. I mean, I think that's you know, I'm tired of seeing Skeen like constantly like pressing Andor, and they don't keep doing that during the mission. But I do think it's funny, like Andor was pressing Vel and Tareen or Tariq about like them not knowing the ship or whatever, them not knowing the how the thing works. I'm like, wow, they were really about to go into this plan like and lose. Like they were about to go in there and get wrecked, like if he didn't show up. So yeah, hopefully that makes his credibility a little bit more credible.
Yeah, that's one thing I liked about this episode a lot, is that we learned that Cassian isn't just like some guy who's really good at stealing things. Like he's low-key a savant. Like he's low-key like really freaking smart. Like next level smart, like more smart than this team who's been working for who knows how long, like a year undercover to try and do this crazy stunt and to try and pull this mission off. But yet he comes in and he already has 10 times more knowledge than all of them. And it really is this cool way of introducing a character that already has skills that a lot of people don't have. And I like that way that he did the breakdown of the weight classification launch thing, that he was able to figure out like, oh yeah, it's a little switch. How do you guys not know this? Like I've done this a million times. Like he knows this. And it's interesting to see how Cassian could be anything in this universe he wanted to. In a way, he could, right? He's as smart as like a Deidre Miro, who is that lady, right? So if he wanted to, he could be an ISB officer. He could be that level of intellect when it comes to working with the Empire and when it comes to working as a high-level Imperial officer. But instead, he's doing these gigs and stunts, and he's more down on the ground level because of the way the Empire measures each people and where you're from, right? It's more about the background of where you're from. So even though Cassian is 10 times smarter than a Cyril Karn is the guy who's calling all these shots, and Cassian is the one who's on the ground level and being chased around. Did you notice, did you catch that, or am I the only one who's feeling that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I felt that a little bit, but yeah, the way you kind of broke that down, that's a deep connection. I put it and pieced it together like that.
Yeah, it's almost like he's smarter than all these Imperial officers, and yet they don't realize like he's above them mentally, but to them he's like beneath them. They're like he's like the dirt beneath their feet, and yet in reality he's like 10 times smarter than anyone from like 10 different planets.
and that's I think that's true in real life in a lot of cases. Like I think if you look at like, I mean, I you know, I hate to say it, like a lot of authority figures, a lot of people in government, a lot of people in politics, and a lot of people in law enforcement are just idiots, like are just stupid. Like and you know, like I say this, you know, I said this like a lot during 2020, but I'm gonna say it again now. Like police, you don't have to have a college degree to be a police person. Like that only takes like 6 weeks of training to become an officer. And I imagine if you're part of this little empire joint, it's probably like less training. Like they probably just recruit you off the street. Like, here, you're gonna be in charge of something. So like they're all literally idiots who are just like in suits, like pretending to be something they're not. And then the one or two exceptional people who like actually like care are the ones like Serial and Homegrow. So Deetra, yeah. So it's like, yeah, everybody is complacent. I don't even say like dumb is the right word, but like complacent with the Empire and like complacent with the way things are going, and just like kind of like look away from it. But whereas like these two are just like, no, we have to. And even with Deetra's little she had like a little assistant, like side character dude who was like also egging her on, like, no, you're right about something, like and she, even though like most of them are idiots, she's the one that was like, oh, there might be something going on. There's all these distinct like attacks going on. There might be some connective tissue there, you know? So yeah,
it really is an interesting perspective showing the two different sides of Deidre trying to capture the rebels, and of Cassian teaching these rebels how to do certain things and how to be better at their job and being better undercover when it comes to the guns, when it comes to the weight of the cargo ship, and all this kind of stuff that he was teaching them in this episode. It shows you the different dynamics of leadership and the different dynamics of knowledge of being undercover and of pulling off these jobs. I thought that was a really cool angle as well. The only other thing I have is mainly Mon Mothma. We get a little bit of her this episode, but how do you feel about her storyline, and where do you think that's headed?
I think it's great. Well, for one, she's definitely like been a neglected character in Star Wars like so far. I love seeing her in this, and I love seeing a politician character who like actually cares and is like actually fighting for the good side. And meanwhile, her husband is just a complete like douche, like idiot, like wacko. For one, inviting all these like what seemed like terrible people to dinner, like at their house, without even telling his wife about it. That's crazy. That's crazy for one. And then two, pinning their actual daughter against Mon Mothma during that little argument about who's taking her to school or whatever. That was also like crazy. So it's interesting seeing the livelihood of Mon Mothma's personal life, how it seems like her, how it kind of seems like her husband is like part of the problem, how it kind of seems like her husband is like kind of oppressing her. She's kind of dealing like with her own level of oppression outside of the overall rebellion that's going on. So yeah, I think it's dope.
What's really cool is like I feel like the show's doing a really good job of showing you not necessarily investment in the empire or investment into imperialism and fascism, but complacency into fascism and imperialism, right? Where the husband doesn't necessarily support those people, but he's cool with them. He's like, oh yeah, they're cool, they're fun, they're awesome. Like, I don't know what your big problem is. Like, just don't think about it too much. Like, don't worry about it. Like, that's kind of his mentality versus someone who's like, you know, actively investing into it and supporting it, like Cyril is, who we see later on with his mom. Like, that's a character who's like 100% bought in, versus someone like Mon Mothma's husband, who's complacent with it, who's okay with it. And Mon Mothma is 100% vehemently against it. And she wants to try and fight back against that in her own way. So I think that's a really good example of showing you the different perspectives of what it is to be invested into a cause. Like Nevic's character, right? Where he's writing different ideas and he's writing a manifesto about oppression and about the brainwashing of the empire and about the same thing I'm saying right now, complacency, and how they keep different people complacent from different planets, and how that's kind of their way of doing things, where it's not necessarily the idea of I like the empire. It's more about the idea of I'm okay with this. Like, this is how things are. I might as well accept it because there's no fighting back. And that's what Nevic was talking about when he was talking to Cassian about his writings and about how that's how they keep control in two different planets. So I think it's really complex, really cool, interesting stuff that they're talking about this episode. Any final thoughts, RB3?
No, I love this episode. I love everything that they're putting up so far. I genuinely enjoy the slow pace of it. I know it's like annoying some people.
Love it.
But
I love the slowest.
Yeah, I don't like slow pace when it's like bubblegum. Like, I don't think it's like I hate to crap on She-Hulk, but I think She-Hulk is like an example of like what like slow pacing like shouldn't look like, you know, like in terms of like giving us nothing for most episodes. But this like gives us so much rich dialogue, so much rich acting. And this is really, like I said this like off top, this is like to me it's like some HBO level stuff. Like, honestly, I promise if I was part of the Emmy body, Television Academy body, I would vote for this for like best drama series kind of level, because to me the way everything feels, from the production design, like I said, the acting, Stellan Skarsgård, Genevieve, O'Reilly, like all these people, and mad people who apparently also were like on Chernobyl as well, like on HBO's Chernobyl, which you've been raving about forever.
Incredible.
And yeah, it just, you could feel that elevation. Like, you could feel that it's not some schlocky trying to make it for the money product. Like, this is the actual piece of art that they like are putting out. And we're getting not just one season, but 2 seasons of Andor. Give it to me all, because I want it. So
Yeah, I'm so with you, man. I love the slow pace. I think it's so different. I think it's needed inside this universe. I think it's needed inside of Star Wars so bad when it comes to the type of storytelling that they've told in the past, where everything is so incredibly rushed and on purpose rushed, because that's the way George Lucas created it. Like he created the original trilogy in a very fast pace, and that's part of what made it what it is. But now to take that same world and to just completely draw it out and slow it down and make it 12 episodes instead of 6, and make the pacing just so much more deliberate and complex and layered and just much more focused on characters, to me is just absolutely stellar and incredible. So I'm really enjoying this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let us know what you think of Andor so far. But either way, RB3, where can anyone find you, man?
you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Squad Leader Ace, and First Cut on TikTok. Follow us on there as well. But either way, guys, for the First Cut crew and for SABACC the Block, we're going to be peacing out. Peace.